Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to build a serverless notes app, okay? And I know you might be thinking that we are going to go with the idea I introduced in our last video where we built a 100% complete serverless app. However, that is not going to be the case for today's video. In today's video, we are going to use one of these software as a service platforms, okay? We'll utilize one of these services in building our applications, okay? This is because I want to show you the stark contrast between the last approach we considered in the last video and the standard approach you have where you're using this software as a service platform, okay? So in today's video, we'll use one of them. So make sure you stick around so you know the software as a service platform that we are going to be making use of, okay? So let's dive into what we have for today. So what I've got here is a React component that I've already built in the past because I don't want to waste your time. It's showing you how I set up that component and all of that jazz. I just want us to go straight into the integration as soon as possible. However, I've already done some of the work. I've already built the template, so I'm just going to walk you quickly through this template, okay? So let's go. We have a React template here and I'm using React with TypeScript. I set up this template using Vite, as you can see. So if you don't know how to do that, then you can see our previous videos. In those videos, we set up a React template from scratch, and then you can have an understanding of how to create your own React template from scratch if you don't know how to do that. But anyway, let's dive in. So we have this src folder, and you can see that inside of this src folder, we've already created a bunch of components, folders, and all of that. So let me quickly walk you through it, starting with this main.css file. I didn't mess with this file, okay? This file is just the way it is when you create your React project in it. So we're going to move on from that file and we are going to go into our app.txs file, okay? So this is our app.txs file, and inside this our app.txs file, you can see that we are importing this router from navigation/index. We are going to look at this file shortly. We are also importing our router provider from React router DOM, okay? And you see that we use the router provider, and then we parse this router prop on this router provider to be equal to this router we imported from this file, okay? So let's jump into that navigation and see what it looks like. You can see that we have a constant.ts file, and inside of this constant.ts file, we are exporting an object which is named screens. And inside of this screens object, we have the screens for our application, okay? Because we have a home screen, we have a screen for creating a note, we have a screen for editing a note, we have a screen for notes that are archived, we have another screen for notes that we have deleted, and finally we have the screen that allows us to get the details of the note, okay? So now let's look at this index.tsx file, okay? So inside of this index.css file, you can see that we first import this create browser router from React router DOM, and then we import that our screens object we created in this constant.ts file. We also import the home page. We are going to take a look at this page shortly. We import another page, the create note page. We're also going to take a look at this particular page shortly. Then we also import the notes page, which we are also going to take a look at shortly. You can see that we are creating a router object and we are exporting that object from this file. And this object is equal to the result of calling the create browser router, which we imported from React router DOM. This is a function that allows us to create a router because the result of calling this function is essentially a router object that you can use in our application. This function accepts an argument, which is an array. Inside of this array, you have an object where you can configure the properties. So the properties we can configure for this object allow us to define things like the path, which is the screen, and then the component that's going to match that screen when we navigate to that particular page in our application, okay? So we see we have an index page, and the component for this index page is the home page. We have another page, which is the create note page, and the component for this page is the create note component. Then we have another page, which is the notes page, and the component for this note page is the notes element, okay? So let's go ahead and look at those pages, okay? Inside of this page folder, you can see that we have two folders and one component. We have an index.css file. Inside this index.css file, you can see that we have a home page component, which we are exporting as default from this file, okay? You can see that we import the layout. We are going to look at the layout shortly. We import an another component, which is a to-do item component. We import the to-do page header, and we use all of these components to create our home page by calling the layouts component. And then inside the layouts component, we have a div here, and inside of this div, we have our to-do page header. Then we have another div that's surrounding our to-do item component. Okay, makes sense? So let's look at the notes page. Inside of the notes page, we have just one component, and this component imports the layout also. Then imports another component, note component, from components folder /notes. And then inside of this note component, we just use the layouts, and then we wrap the note component with the div inside of this layout component. You can see that we have a third folder. This create folder allows us to create a note, and you can see that we have an index.css file inside of this component. Okay, this index.css file imports the layout components from the components /layout, and it also imports the note from /components/note form. We have a create note function here, which we export as default from this file, and this function just returns a bit of UI. We use the layout component which we imported, and then we wrap the note form component with the div inside of that layout component. Okay, so this is the components folder where we drop all of our components. You can see the app wrapper components. You can see drop down. Let's take a look at the layout components which all of the pages are using. So inside of this layout component, you can see that we create a layout component and export it as default from this file, and then we return a UI. Inside of this UI, we have a div that's wrapping everything. Then we have an app wrapper components which we import from the app wrapper. Look at the app wrapper components here. I don't have time to go into all of that details. When we actually come to integrating them into our application, you're going to see how we go through all of these components one by one. Just know that we have an app wrapper component. We'll barely make use of this component in this video. Then let's go back to the layout component. We have a sidebar component, and this is the component with the sidebar. So as we are also going to be going through the course of this video, you will see how each component works. Okay, then let's go back to the layout. There we have a main, and we just use our TailwindCSS to just make sure everything looks pretty. Then we have the children, which we nest inside of this main component. Okay, so now that we have seen how all of our UI works, I'm going to go ahead and pull up a terminal, and from that terminal I'm going to hit npm run dev. Okay, and this command is going to spin up a local development server for us to preview our application. App is done loading up. Now let's go ahead and open up a browser tab. So I'm going to hit localhost 5173, and this is what our application currently looks like. Okay, you can see we have this button for add note, and if I click this button, it takes us to the page where we can create a note. I'm going to go back to the home page. You can see we have a notes link. We have another link for us to view our current notes. We have another link for us to view notes which we have changed the status to draft. We have another link for us to view archive notes, and then finally we have a link for us to view notes that we've deleted, and we can see our note components here. This is the note item header here. So this is just what our component looks like. We also have a search bar here. We have another icon for notification and another icon for us to do anything we see fit. So let's go ahead and integrate Pocketbase into our application. Okay, because we are going to use Pocketbase in today's application. Let's visit the home page for Pocketbase so we can download our own instance of the Pocketbase executable. Let's click on the documentation button, and this takes us to the documentation page. Right at the bottom of the page, we can see the links where we can download the Pocketbase executable. I'm going to go ahead and download the executable for Windows since I'm on a Windows machine. With the executable downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and unzip the bundle. You can see that we have a Pocketbase folder, and inside of that folder, we have a Pocketbase executable. I'm going to go ahead and add the path to this executable in our system path. So I'm going to go and search, edit the environment variables, and we'll edit the system variables. We'll select the path variable, and then we'll add the path to the Pocketbase executable just downloaded and extracted. This is in order for us to use Pocketbase commands anywhere in our terminal. Now, let's connect our React app to our Pocketbase server. But before we do that, we need to create the admin for our Pocketbase server. And to do that, we navigate to the UI for the admin dashboard, where we are greeted with a form which prompts us to create an admin account. We'll do that. We will create our admin account gracefully. Now we are on the dashboard, and you can see that we have a very neat and professional looking template here. Now let's go ahead and create a collection for our notes. I'm going to click on the new collection button. This pulls out a sidebar for us. Now we can see the form for creating a collection. We'll give our collection a name, which is notes. Then we'll add some fields to our collection. The first field we add is a field with a name title, and it's going to be a string. We'll have another field, contents, which is a rich string. This allows us to capture white spaces and more editor-rich contents. The next field is a status property, which is also a string. Then we are going to have another field is deleted, which is a boolean. Finally, we'll go ahead and hit the create button to create our collection for us. With our collection created for us, you can see that we have some extra properties that Pocketbase has added for us when it was creating our collection. You can see that we have an ID property, a created property, and updated property. So all these three properties were added for us by Pocketbase when it was creating our collection. And by the way, the created and the updated property are both strings. Now let's actually connect our application to Pocketbase, and to do that we need to install the Pocketbase JavaScript package. We'll do that by opening up a new terminal inside of VS Code and copying and pasting the following command. We'll run this command from our terminal, then we'll wait for Pocketbase to finish installing. We are going to create a new file, helper.cs, and the job of this file is to export some functions for interacting with our Pocketbase server. First, we import Pocketbase from Pocketbase, then we'll create a Pocketbase connection instance by calling the Pocketbase constructor function. This accepts a string as an argument, and this string is a link to our Pocketbase server. We'll copy this link from our terminal where we have Pocketbase running and paste it into the constructor argument. Now we'll define and export a function getAllNodes, and this function fetches all the nodes we have created inside of our database. Inside of this function, we await a code to pb.collection nodes, and this is just a standard way to reference a collection in Pocketbase. Then we change a call to the getList function. This function returns the records from the collection. This function accepts a couple of arguments. The first is a number, which is page, and it references the page of items we are currently trying to fetch. This is in terms of pagination, and as such, there is built-in pagination when trying to fetch items from a collection in Pocketbase. This just makes our work as developers much more easier and straightforward. The next argument is also a number, and it references the number of records to fetch for each page, and in this instance we'll pass in 10 as a value for this argument. The last argument is an optional config object for making complex queries with filters and sorting. We won't use that for now, but we are still going to use that in the course of this video. Take note, we are exporting this function from this file. We are going to return the results calling that Pocketbase.collection nodes getList from this function. I'm going to navigate to the root index.css file in the page directory. I'm going to go ahead and create a new stateful variable, but before I finish doing that, let's create the type for our nodes. And to do that, I'm going to create a types.ts file where we will define and export a type node, which will have an ID property, which might be a string or an ID. We don't know for now because that's coming from Pocketbase. Then we have a contents property, which is a string, a title property, which is a string, a created property, a created art property, and an updated art property, both of which can be of type string, number, or date. And finally, we are going to have an is deleted property, which is a boolean. Next, we'll have a status property, which is of a narrow type. Then we'll navigate to the page/index.txx file, and we'll set the type for our stateful variable to be a nodes array. We'll name the stateful variable nodes, and the function for updating the stateful variable will be setNodes. Now, we will define a useEffect function for fetching and updating the nodes array. Inside of this useEffect, we will define a function named fetchNode, which is an async function. Inside this function, we will import and call the getNodes function from inside the helper.cs file. We'll store the return value from this function inside the variable result, which we will log out to the console for now. We'll serve up our application locally, then we'll open up a browser tab to preview the app. You can see our nice looking notes template. You can observe a 403 error in our console when we are trying to fetch the notes, and this is because we have not specified from the admin dashboard that we want to retrieve the notes collection from our app. We need to head onto the Pocketbase admin dashboard and configure the collection to enable us to retrieve records from it inside of our app. We'll edit the notes collection and unlock the notes collection for all rules. That is list and search and so on and so forth, as we see in the Pocketbase admin dashboard Unlocking this rule and all other rules allows us to interact with our data from our app, getting rid of the 403 error. Now we can see an object with some properties in our console. You can see the object has an items property, which is an empty array. It is this items property that we store the result of from our database when we try to retrieve the records stored in each collection. Let's see how we can create a record. We'll navigate back into our helper.css file, and inside of this file, we'll define and export another function, create note. This is also an async function that accepts an object with a title property and a contents property, which we will use to create a new note by changing a call to pb.collection_notes.create and pass in the title property and the content property. We'll set the status of the note to be pending, and we'll ensure that is deleted will be false. We'll store the resulting note in a variable named note, which will return from this function. Let's navigate to the create/index.tsx file. We'll open up the components folder and navigate to the note form component. We need to add a button to allow us to submit the form, that is to create a note. We'll add some TailwindCSS magic to make it look pretty. We'll change the div wrapping the all of the note form components into a form so it is easier to work with. We'll create a form ref object. This is just a mutable ref object that points to the form. Then we'll define a handle submit function, which is an async function that accepts an event object, which is a form event type. Inside this function, we'll call event.prevent default. Next, we'll add a try catch block so that if there's an error, we'll fire an alert with a message reading error creating note. Inside the try block, we'll obtain the title and the contents property from the form, and we'll ensure we set the name prop on the title input field and also the name prop on the text area for the note contents. Then we import and call the create note function from the helper file, which will pass into the object with the title property and the content property, which is equal to the note_title and the note_body respectively. Then we'll console log the newly created notes and any errors we encounter while trying to create a note to the console. We'll set the onSubmit prop on the form to equal to the handle submit function we just created. Let's go back into our app and try to create a new note. Okay, so now we are in the browser tab and we are going to give this note a title of test note. We'll copy and paste in some lorem ipsum into the body of the note. Then we'll hit enter to submit form, and you can see the newly created notes in the console. We'll go back to the note form component and then we'll import use navigate from React Router DOM. Then we'll call the use navigate hook and store the result in the variable navigate, which we use to navigate to the home page anytime we create a new to do. We'll navigate to the components /sidebar.csx, and inside of this file, we'll edit the nav with the list. We'll edit the first list item, replacing the anchor element with the link element, which we import from React Router DOM. Then we'll set the prop on this link component to be the path for the home screen. Now we are on the home page, and you can see that the result from fetching the notes has been updated, and now it has one record inside. So let's show this in our UI. We need to adjust the note type inside the types.ts file, which we'll navigate to. Inside this file, we'll change the type definition to an interface definition, and this interface is going to extend from a record model. The record model interface is provided by Pocketbase. Then we navigate to pages/index.csx and call the set notes function. We'll pass in the result.items as an argument to it. I will ensure that we typecase result.items to be a note array. Now we loop through the notes array for each of the notes, and we render a note item component, which I incorrectly named to do item, but take note, this is supposed to be a note item. We will navigate to the note item component. This component will accept a prop, which is of a note type. We will destructure out the title property, the contents property, the ID property, and the created art property. Then we'll navigate deep inside of this component and render out the contents property, but we'll slice it to 20 characters. I will also render out the title. Then we'll navigate into our browser to preview our app, and you can see the recent to-do we just created in the UI with its title and content. Now let's render out the created art property by converting it into a JavaScript date object and calling the toDateString method on that date object to render out a date. If we preview this in our browser, you can observe that we get an error, invalid date. This is because we relied on a created art property instead of a created property. Now let's fix that on the node type in the type types.ts file and head back to our note item component. Now we get the expected date. However, let's just format it a bit differently. Let's set up a page for viewing our note. But before we do that, let's navigate to the helper file. We'll export a function from this file, getNote, which fetches a single note based on its ID. Then we return the note from the function. Let's navigate back to the note/index.tsx file. Inside this file, we'll create a status variable note, which is of type note. Then we define a use effect hook for fetching the note. But for that to work, we need to destructure out the ID property from the root params by calling the use params hook, which is exported from React Router DOM. Back inside the use effects, we will add a try catch block, and you must have observed that I use this approach a lot. It's just my own way of doing things, okay? It makes errors more straightforward to deal with. We will alert the user of any error encountered while trying to fetch that note inside the error block, while in the try block we fetch the to do by importing and calling the getNote function from the helper file and passing in the ID variable with the structured out from the root params. Then we'll update the note stateful variable. We'll pass the note item to the note component, which we'll open up and navigate to. Then we'll set a prop which is of a note type in the note component. We'll destructure out the title and the contents property, which will render out in the UI, starting with the title prop and then the contents prop. Let's navigate back to components/note-item.tsx and add an on-click handler for the wrapper div that wraps all of this UI. We'll import the use navigate hook and set up a navigate function inside of this component. Inside the on-click handler, we'll call the navigate function and pass in the path to the note page. It's the ID of that note, okay? Now, anytime we click on a note item on the home page, it takes us to the page to view the note details, but we get a 404 error of not found because we have not set up a root handler for that in our navigation /index.tsx file, which we'll navigate to and add a new object. This object has a path property, which is the path for the to-do details page, and an element property, which is the to-do details page. If you head back to our browser, you can see that the error has gone away and now we are on the to-do details page. Let's see how we can delete a note, okay? So take note that we are going to use a soft delete. That's why we will update the status of the note and it is deleted property via an update function. So let's navigate back into the header file in our VS Code. We'll define and export a function update note, which takes in an ID, which is a string, as its first argument. The second argument is an object with a type property, a contents property, and a status property. And the type for this object is a note type. Inside this function, we will update the title, the contents, and the status of the notes using the respective arguments and the ID of the note. Then we'll return the updated note from this function. Let's navigate back to the note item component and set up an on-click handler for a button for deleting a note. Inside this handler, we import and use the update note function from the helper file. We are going to update this update note function in a bit. Let's ensure that we destructure add the is deleted property on the second argument and also use it to update the note. Now, back in the note item file, we pass in the ID of the note as the first argument to the handle update function. Then we'll set its status to deleted and then is deleted will be true. Let's go back to the helper file and update the getNotes function a bit. We will use the filter property to retrieve notes whose status is not deleted. I'm going to create a new note which we will delete. So let's head back into our browser and navigate to the create page. We'll give our note a title of second note and paste in some lorem ipsum for its body and hit create. You can see in the note list on the home page that we have added another note. Let's go ahead and create another note with a title of third note and pass in some more lorem ipsum as the body of the note and then hit create. You can now see that we have 3 notes we have created. So let's go ahead and delete the third note and go back to our home page. And you can now see that we only have 2 notes. Now let's set up our trash page. Let's go back to our project on VS Code. Create a new file inside the pages folder. In this file, we have a name, deleted/index.css. This creates an index.txt file inside a deleted folder, which is in turn inside the pages folder. We'll copy all of the code from the pages/index.css file and paste them inside the deleted/index.css file. We'll update all imports, change the name of our component, and navigate back to the helper file. Inside this file, we'll create and export a method, which is just a copy of the getNotes function. We'll name this method getDeletedNotes, and inside the filter, we only get to do whose status is deleted. We'll navigate back into the pages /deleted /index.css file and update the use effect hook. We will change the core from get nodes to get deleted nodes, which will be imported from the helper file. We will need to set up a root handler for this, so we need to navigate to the index.css file inside the navigation folder. We'll add a new root handler object with a path property which is equal to screens.trash and an element property which is the deleted nodes component. Now let's head back to the components /sidebar.tsx to ensure we set up a link component to navigate to the trash page when we click the trash button. Let's go back into our browser and click the trash button. Let's fix a little bug on the get deleted nodes function, especially the filter object, and go back into our browser. You can now see the two nodes which we have deleted. So finally, let's allow our user to be able to edit the title and contents of a node. To do that, first we need to navigate to the components /node-item.css file. Then we'll add a button that navigates to the edit node page when it is pressed. Let's view our browser. As you can see that green edit button on the nodes component. Clicking this button takes us to the edit page, but since we have not set up a root handler for that, we get an error 404 not found. Let's go back into VS Code and open up the page folder. We'll create a new component, edit /index.csx, and this creates an index.css file inside an edit folder inside the page folder. Inside of this module, we'll create a new component, edit node. Then we'll copy the UI from the create /index.css file and paste it inside the edit /index.css file and export the edit node component as default from this file. We import all other components this edit node page needs, which is the layout component and the node form component respectively. We'll navigate to the node form component and set up a prop, which is a partial node type. Then we'll also define another prop, handle update, which has a function type for now. We define the third prop is update, which is a boolean. Now let's update the handle submit method on this node form component after we process the form. We check if its update is true, and then we call the handle update function. We set up the default value on the title input field to be the existing to do title, and we are also going to do the same for the text area content. We'll navigate to the node /index.css file and copy the use effect and use state hook calls, which we'll paste inside edit /index.css file and sort out all the imports. Then we are going to set the node prop or the node form component to be the node stateful variable we just created. Let's define a custom function for the handle update prop on the node form component. Let's create a new function, handle update, which is an async function that accepts a string as its first argument and an object which is a partial node. We are going to import and call our wait update node function from the helper file and pass in the arguments to it, namely the ID of that node we want to edit and the node which we want to edit respectively. We are going to pass this as a value for the handle update prop on the node form component, but there's a mismatch and the TypeScript compiler throws an error. We need to update the type for this prop, which we will do by navigating to the node form component and changing the type for the handle update prop to be an async function which accepts an ID argument, which is a string, and a node object as its second argument. Then we'll navigate to navigation /index.css file and add a new root handler object whose path is equal to the edit node route and its element is the edit node component. We'll navigate back to our browser. I can see that we are now on the edit page with the to-do we want to edit showing up. We will change the title from test node to test node edited. Then we are going to hit enter. You can see that the title of the node changes to test node edited. So that's going to be all for this video, guys. I'm going to let you figure out how you can archive a note or mark it as a draft. If you like this video, please give it a like. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can get access to all of our videos in the future as they drop. And I'm going to see you in the next one.